Hey guys, Dr. Stan here. So tonight we're doing our Get Well, Stay Well workshop. So what our Get Well, Stay Well workshop is, it's for any new person that comes to the office. We invite them into the office to come to our workshop so they can basically learn what they're doing that might be sabotaging their adjustment, what might be keeping their body from healing. And essentially what most people get out of it is over time what they learn is how to get better faster, stay better longer, and essentially save money in the long run. Now we generally do one of these a week in our office, but this is our online version of it. So if you can't make one of the in-office workshops, this is an alternative for that. And so we're going to go over all the same information that we normally go over. So my name is Dr. Stan Dombrowski. I'm the clinic director and owner here of Balanced Health Chiropractic Center. And way back in 2003, we opened Balanced Health with one main reason, and that was to bring NUCA, upper cervical chiropractic, to West Michigan. Prior to us moving here, it was a service that wasn't offered in the area, anywhere on this side of the state. In fact, when I moved here in 2003, there were only 6 practitioners in the entire state. Now there's probably 12, and we're still the only office really on this side of the state, this in our Grand Rapids location. But the reason we did that is because a lot of people have tried a lot of things, whether it's traditional chiropractic, whether it's therapy, whether it's surgery, whether it's drugs, whether it's lotions, whatever it is. And sometimes whatever they did, it helped, and then maybe their doctor retired or something like that, or it helped for a while, then it stopped helping. Maybe they tried something and it didn't do anything. Maybe they even tried something and it made it worse, like a failed surgery or something like that. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to give people another option, a different way of looking at the body, looking at how the body works, looking at how the body heals, to give people a different option. Because if you're like a lot of those people that have tried and tried and tried and tried things, it's like you're on this treadmill just going around and around and around just to end up right where you started. And if that's you, that can be pretty frustrating. And so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to show you the different things you can do. We're going to show you, one, how you got down into this position. Then we're going to show you the different things you can do to get out of this position. And then the things you can do to kind of help you stay up here, to keep your body functioning properly. Because, well, we like seeing you. We just don't want to see it twice a week. We don't want to see it once a week. What we want to do is we want to get your body as strong as possible and then just check it every once in a while. You know, kind of like going to the dentist to check for cavities before the cavity shows up. Well, that's what we want to do. We want to check for the subluxation, that misalignment that breaks your body down before it causes a problem. So we only have to check it every once in a while and not build it out of the gutter every time there's a crisis. Does that make sense? We think so. And so that's what we're going to do today. All right, first we're going to talk about the body a little bit. Now, I'm not going to try to make you an anatomist or a physiologist or anything like that. But when we look at the body, our body's a pretty complex thing. It's actually pretty simple. Just let it do what it's designed to do and things work pretty well. But if we start digging into it and we start looking into it, when we look at our body, there's over 50 to 100 trillion cells in our body. Now, 50 to 100 trillion, that's a number that's really hard to even fathom how big of a number that is. And so if you were to start counting right now and you were going to count to 1 trillion, how long do you think that would take you? I've had some people say 30 minutes, a couple hours, a week. If you were to start counting right now and you counted 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, it would take you 30,000 years or 300 centuries to count to 1 trillion. It's pretty amazing, right? Well, here's another math question for you. Where does 1 plus 1 equal 1? We get all kind of wild answers for this one. So take a moment. What do you think? It's in conception. So you have one sperm cell comes together with one egg cell to make one cell. That one cell then starts to divide in 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, dividing and dividing, dividing, and in 9 months, we have this 50 trillion celled little person that pretty much every single time comes out perfectly. And so it would take us 30,000 years to count to 1 trillion. But our body is able to develop this 50 trillion celled little person in 9 months. And does that happen randomly? Does that happen by just chance? Are we just a bag of chemicals that come together like 6 billion times, or however many people are on this planet, nearly perfectly every single time? Or is it controlled by something? So when we look at how the body works, our brain controls everything that happens in our body. Messages come from the brain down through the spinal cord, out through the nerves. It controls every cell, every tissue, every organ in your body. There's approximately 1 billion nerves in our body. And if we look at how that works, our brain controls everything that happens in our body. Messages come from the brain down through the spinal cord, out through the nerves. And so when we look at how the nerves work, even the nerves that go all the way down to the big toe are really kind of like an extension of your brain. So it's controlling everything that's happening. So when those two cells come together, the first thing that happens within the first few days, as these cells are dividing and dividing and dividing, the first thing that comes together is this thing called the neural streak. It starts in your brain stem right here. The neural streak then extends down, creates the spinal cord, goes up, creates the neural tube. The neural tube starts to fold over onto itself and becomes the brain. Well, what happens is these other streaks start to come out from the neural streak, and you'll see these cells start to gather around, and they'll start to beat rhythmically together, and then that starts to form the heart. And so your brain, from that early on, your nervous system is controlling and orchestrating and conducting everything that's happening in our body, all the way till we come out and we cry for the first time, and then we learn to walk, and then eating. We know how when we're hungry, and then breathing. Could you imagine what it would take? It would be paralyzing if you had to think about every single thing that happens in your body just to get out of your car and walk into your house at night. It would be paralyzing. We couldn't do it. But our body does it amazingly and efficiently all the time. And so we have this amazing nervous system that's telling our body what to do at every moment. And then we take you into this room over here, and we tickle you below the ear with an adjustment. It's kind of amazing, right, that it even does anything? Well, what we're looking for is the upper cervical, or the atlas subluxation complex. So you might remember the term, I hope you remember the term subluxation from the report that we went through. And if you don't, the misalignment of the bones, it irritates the nerve. It's like static in a phone line. Message from the brain comes down, hits that static. By the time it gets out to where it's going, your body has no clue what to do with it. Well, if we look at how the body works, the brain controls everything that happens in the body. Messages come from the brain down through the spinal cord, out through the nerves. Well, if this gets knocked out of balance, then what happens is that has the potential to affect everything at the start, going all the way down. And so if we don't get this corrected, now the communication between your brain and the rest of the body can't function the right way. So what we're looking for is the atlas subluxation, or the upper cervical subluxation complex. But how do we know that these subluxations even exist? Well, they did a study at the University of Pennsylvania where they looked at 139 cadavers. And all these cadavers, all these people died of what they deemed natural causes. And what they found in 138 of them is when they traced it, they died of what they deemed natural causes from type of organ disease. So they didn't have, like, say, cirrhosis of the liver because of alcoholism or something like that. But what they found is when they traced the nerve from that diseased organ back to the level of the spine, what they found were signs of damage and degeneration at that level of the spine. But how much pressure does it actually take? How much irritation does it actually take to distort the function of a nerve? Well, the University of Colorado did a study, and what they found was the weight of 2 snowflakes or a mosquito is enough to distort the function of the nerve by about 50%. So we're starting to get we're getting into growing season here when I'm videoing this. And so a lot of people are starting to get their gardens ready and planting things. And so if you grow a garden, and everything is set up right, and we get plenty of sunshine, we're not getting a lot of rain, so we put the hose to it to give it as much water that it needs, what happens? It grows. It produces the fruits, it produces the vegetables that we're looking to get. But what happens if you take a big rock, and you set a rock on top of that hose, and you cut off 50% of that water? What happens? It doesn't grow as well. A lot of people will say it'll die or whatever, and it might, but most of the time what happens, it just doesn't grow as well. And so we don't get as much fruit, we don't get as much vegetable there. Our body's the same way. Whenever we're subluxated and the brain can't communicate properly with the rest of the body, it's not that what's at the end of that nerve stops working. It's just what's at the end of that nerve doesn't work as well. So that's why when some people will come to us, they'll come to us for neck pain or back pain or whatever it is, and then we get it corrected and they say, oh, I'm doing great. And a little bit later they go, you know what? I didn't have my sinus infection this year. That happened this past winter. One of our patients was sitting out there and it's like the light bulb came on, bing. And she said, hey, she goes, every year, like clockwork, I get a sinus infection. She goes, I didn't get one this year because her body was functioning optimally. So we have this amazing nervous system that controls everything that's happened in our body. And we bring it into this tiny little room and then we tickle you below the ear and tell you how it's going to get better. How does that work? It seems kind of weird, doesn't it? Well, everyone is different. Everyone has a different misalignment. There's about 1,200 ways that this can misalign right up here. And so what we have to do is we take 3 very specific x-rays, one from the side, one from the top down, one from the front. That gives us a 3-dimensional picture of what's happening. Once we get that figured out, what we're looking for is we're using the weight of your head as leverage. The weight of this bowling ball sitting on top of this tiny little neck here. We're using the weight of that head as leverage. And what we do, I kind of have set up here, represented here, is we balance your head in a very specific position based on your misalignment. And once we have your head set up in this position, we've calculated a specific angle based on your misalignment that triangulates to a very specific angle. And once we have you set up into position, all it takes is just a little bit of pressure right below the ear. So like this bottle here, I could push it in any direction, it's not going to do anything. But if I get just in the right spot and I just barely tap it, it's going to move. That's essentially what we do here. We balance your head in a very specific position, triangulate a specific angle, and then it feels like the amount of pressure just below your ear to get gravity moving that way. Once we get your head moving with gravity that way, then gravity takes over, your body moves things where it's supposed to go. Then we followed up with a post x-ray to make sure that we calculated the right angle and made the correction that we wanted. So that's why we don't have to go through and twist and crack and pop things like a lot of times people will think when they think chiropractic. But that's why we don't push that hard either. Some people say, well, you're barely touching me. How does it move anything? Well, if we push too hard, what happens? Your body really wants to protect this area. And so if we push too hard, the muscles tense up, the joints lock up, it makes it really difficult to move things. And so we shouldn't dent your skin more than 1/8 of an inch. That's how we can get an optimal correction. But what can you guys do to hold your adjustment better? I mean, we see you for 5-10 minutes. The rest of the 6 days, 23 hours, and 55 minutes, you have to hold that in place. So what are some of the different things that you can do to try to help keep your adjustment in place? Well, one of the things we ask you not to do right after your adjustment is don't rub the muscles. When you rub the muscles, you can mechanically relax things and things can fall back to where they were. So your body was stuck in this position, your body's compensated and distorted. Once we get your head on straight, now the muscles are going to start to move and to change things. And if you rub it, you can mechanically relax it and not going to let it go back to where it was. We don't want that to happen. So don't rub the muscles if right after the adjustment. And also watching your range of motion. So what happens is we go through life and we have bumps and bruises and accidents and injuries. And what happens is it breaks our body down and our body distorts and compensates for that. Well, weaknesses develop down through the spine. And so once we get things correct and your body brings it back to center, those weaknesses are still there. It's in a position where healing can start and it can start getting stronger in that position. But what we want you to do is really watch your range of motion. So don't turn your head in any major direction like if someone's behind you. Or a big one is don't bend your head back, like if you're washing your hair in the shower. Bend forward to do it. When you bend your head back, you'll feel the joints jam up on the neck, which is they're supposed to do. But then you can go further, which is the skull sliding on the atlas. That's the part that we want to avoid. And so I usually tell people after their adjustment, kind of act like they're in a car at a stop sign. You turn your head to the right and to the left to look for traffic. Look up at the visor in your car. Use that as a guide of how to turn your head. Now, you don't want to do this. My sister used to do that when she would get adjusted. So you don't need to do that. Movement. Soft tissues heal in the presence of motion. And so movement is good. We have to have movement in it. We just don't want extreme ranges of motion while your body is starting to or trying to heal. Okay, this is a big one. Sitting correctly. So what happens is when our body breaks down, our head gets knocked off balance, our body distorts, and it adapts and it goes into this compensated position. A lot of times if you try to stand straight, say if you're standing in line at the grocery store or something like that, and you try to stand on both feet and you stand up straight, what you'll notice is your low back will get tight, maybe between your shoulder blades start getting tight, and so you'll find it more comfortable if you stand on the side like this, or if you put your foot up on something, because your body has found its second most stable position and is broken down into. Same thing happens when we sit. So when we sit, we should be balanced like this, but if you're subluxated and your body is stuck in this position, now what's going to happen is gravity is still pulling down on your hip. The muscles start to pull up against that to try to get it in this distorted position. And when our muscles fight gravity, gravity always wins. And so what happens, it becomes uncomfortable. So then we do something kind of like this. You start crossing your legs. It puts your body into its broken down position. Twist your hip. So if there's a low back issue that's going on that we're trying to help you with, and you keep putting it into this twisted position, it makes it really difficult to stabilize and to help that. The same thing if you have a wallet in your back pocket. If you have a wallet in your back pocket and you sit for long periods of time, say driving or working at a computer, then what happens is that wallet can act like a wedge in your hip and hike that up, and that can create some low back pain. So take it out, put it in your front pocket. Then you don't have to worry about it being a wedge there, and it's also harder to be pickpocketed when it's in your front too. Now here's a big one, diet. So a lot of times when I say the word diet, people think I'm talking about like the Atkins diet or the South Beach diet or the whatever kind of diet. No. Basically what I'm talking about when I say diet is what we put into our mouth. And for the most part, it's not good. Here's a rule of thumb. So if we look at our plate, and we could hunt it, gather it, or grow it, then we could eat it. Essentially what that would do is that would eliminate sugar. If we eliminated sugar from our diet, what would happen is if everyone eliminated sugar, we would essentially see the elimination of type 2 diabetes. We would see the elimination of most heart disease, most high blood pressure, most high cholesterol. We would see the elimination of a lot of systemic inflammatory diseases. We'd even see the elimination of a lot of cancers. Now, don't quote me. I'd say, he said they can cure every cancer. And most cancers, a big chunk of cancers are glycolytic, meaning they feed on sugar. And so if you can take that source of energy out, then they have a really hard time of surviving. So sugar is a huge part of our diet. Now don't get me wrong, sugar is not evil or anything. Our bodies are designed to be able to deal with sugar and to have sugar, but just not in the massive amounts that we have. And so here's what I like to tell people. If you can do well, someone asked me once, do you eat perfectly? And I was like, no, I don't eat perfectly. But if you can look at your diet and you can do well, say 85% of the time, that gives you that other 15% to go out and have pizza and a beer with your buddies, or to take the family out for ice cream and not feel bad about it. But the reality is most people have it backwards. Most people do well about 15% of the time. They have a salad on Tuesday night and they say, why am I 40 pounds overweight? Or why is my blood pressure so high? Or why do I now have diabetes where I didn't before? And so a lot of those things. And it can be broken down into what we put into our body. Now there are a few supplements that I'm a fan of. A good omega-3 fish oil. Fish oil has really good systemic anti-inflammatory properties. So I'm a big fan of a good omega-3 fish oil. A multi-mineral. I'm more of a fan of a multi-mineral than I am a multivitamin. I think we deplete minerals in our body faster than we do vitamins. So I'm more of a fan of a multi-mineral. and then a good vitamin D supplement, D3 with K2. We have to have enough K for the D to be transported properly in our body. But we get vitamin D from the sunlight hitting our skin. So if you live in Michigan, we spend a big chunk of time without much sun, and that just causes our D levels to plummet. And so if you have heard of the seasonal affective disorder, the depression that starts January-ish, something like that, that's from low D levels. And there's a whole array of things that low vitamin D levels cause, but that's the one that most people can relate with. So the big ones I'm a fan of: fish oil, multi-mineral, and a vitamin D supplement. And then there's fast food. So it's growing and growing and growing and growing. There's fast food everywhere. And sometimes when you're traveling or whatever you're doing, there's just sometimes you can't get around it. And so we can make different choices. Basically, if it has a drive-through window, it's probably not good for you. Now, a lot of places are trying to get better. I mean, I like the McDonald's grilled Southwest chicken salad. I think it tastes really good. Now, we could talk about, is that actually really chicken that's on there, or what is it? But say you're traveling somewhere and you have a choice of getting an Annie Ann's pretzel, which is all bread, which bread eventually breaks down into sugar, or you can get a salad. So there are different choices that we can make. And so sometimes it's just stopping and thinking about it. What's the best choice for me to make right now? Stress. I think stress is one of the biggest killers that we have. So when we have an injury, our body can kind of protect that area, kind of wall off that area, and give it a chance to heal until it's better. Stress is like that injury all over our body, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, constant. It's always there. And it's all. And what it does is your body can't tell the difference between physical stress, emotional stress, and chemical stress. It deals with it all exactly the same way. Causes the same hormone release, causes the muscles to tense up, causes your blood pressure to go up, causes you to take short, shallow breaths. And so all of that. And so our bodies are designed to deal with a certain amount of stress. And so it's kind of like a bucket in a way. So our body has this ability to deal with this amount of stress. And so say we're subluxated and your body's stuck in this position. Well, that's a physical stress on our body. It starts to fill up that bucket. And then say you're drinking Diet Coke every day. That's a chemical stress on your body. If you don't know about aspartame, Google it. Aspartame, when it hits 86 degrees Fahrenheit, breaks down to its chemical components of formic acid, formaldehyde, and methanol alcohol. It's an excitotoxin. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, an excitotoxin. It causes certain cells of the brain to speed up to the point at which they die. Some of the most common things that I see with aspartame toxicity in our body are migraines, nausea, hypersensitivity to the skin, muscle cramps. Those are some of the things I've seen with aspartame toxicity. So we have the physical stress, that subluxation is there. We have that chemical stress that's filling this bucket up even more. And then, say we go home and we have a fight with our spouse, and that causes everything to spill over. And so if we can deal with the certain stresses, if we can remove that subluxation, that starts to lower the amount of stress your body has to deal with. If we can get rid of that Diet Coke out of our life, that gives us more room to deal with the emotional things that are happening in our life. Now the next one, ice versus heat. If you've ever wondered what to do, basically the advice is new injury, ice it. There's an initial inflammatory response going to an area, say you sprain your ankle. There's an initial inflammatory response. You put ice on it, it decreases that response, kind of minimizes the swelling there. If you put heat on it, heat brings blood, which brings more inflammation, which could potentially cause soft tissue damage. So if there's ever a new injury, you think ice. And then next day, 48 hours later, then start thinking ice and heat. Now that initial inflammatory response is over, heat can start to bring brings more blood, which brings more healing properties to it. And so just general rule of thumb, if it's a new injury, think ice. Now heat can be good for certain things like cramps, spasms, things like that, and after the initial inflammatory response. But if you wonder what that is, say you sprain your ankle and you forget what to do, give us a call. We'll tell you to ice it. But think ice. So driving. Anyone drive like this? That puts your body into its broken down position. if there's, say, a low back thing or anything like that, that can really exacerbate it. And then even driving 10 and 2, like they used to teach, can bring up your shoulders, especially if you get tense when you're driving. That can cause a lot of tension throughout the neck and the shoulder. So they actually teach to drive 9 and 3 or 8 and 4 now, I guess because of the airbags coming up. But when you go down here, that also lowers your shoulders, and it takes stress and tension off of your neck. Things that can, a couple moves that can really flare up a back injury or anything like that. Raking and vacuuming are the two most common things that I see that can really aggravate someone's back. You would think shoveling snow or something like that, but I think most people don't. So whenever we rake, we twist and we twist, and we only do it a couple times a year, so our body's not used to that motion. And then we get a nice Saturday and we say, oh, I'm going to go out and rake the yard, and we go out and we do it, and then they come in going, oh, my back. Well, the most vulnerable position for the low back and the discs in the low back is compression and torsion. And so if you spend all day raking, it's really going to inflame that lower back and can make things sore if you already have an issue. The same thing with vacuuming. We reach for it, and when you reach, if there's a low back issue, then that can really exaggerate that. And so if you're going to rake and you're dealing with a low back issue that you're working on, then rake one way for a little bit, and then turn and rake the other way, just to kind of even out the twisting in the low back. If you're vacuuming, just keep it right in front of you. It's annoying because it gets a little slow. You can't get it done as fast, but it'll help protect your adjustment and help protect your low back. Has anyone carried a kid in a car seat lately? You know, the little carriers that you take out. The kid weighs like 10 pounds, but as soon as you put them into a car seat, their weight like exponentially like increases, and you pick it up and it puts all the stress and pressure right on your low back if you hold it out here. So if you have to carry one of those, instead of carrying it out to the side, put it in your elbow. If you put it in the crook of your elbow like this, the kid's a little crooked there and there, but they're strapped in. They're not going anywhere. But that'll help take that pressure off of your low back. It'll help you hold your adjustment for longer periods. Working at a computer. So most people know the proper ergonomics, the 90 degrees, the legs 90 degrees, the monitor right in front and everything in front and your body upright. The most common thing I see with workstation or computer issues really doesn't have a lot to do with the computer, it has to do with the glasses. And so if you find yourself at the computer and you wear bifocals and you're reading out the bottom like this, that causes a lot of contraction to happen back here for a long period of time. And so if you're at the computer for a while and your neck gets stiff and you're getting headaches, it could be because of the glasses. So if that's happening, just look for a pair of readers that you can put on while you're there so you can keep your eyes straight and have good ergonomics for the rest of it. All right, bending and lifting. So what's the old rule they say whenever you lift things? Don't bend at your back. Lift with your legs. And so if you were to do that literally, you ever try to do that literally? Okay, I'm gonna just lift with my legs, not with my back. It's really hard to do. It's almost impossible to do that. So here's where most people get in trouble. Is when they're going to say they have to help a neighbor move a couch or something. And so what happens is, the first thing they do is they bend over. They round their back here. And then they go down, and then they lift their head up. Remember what we talked about earlier when we talked about motion, bending your head back, joints jam up on the self, which is what they're supposed to do. But then we go further, which is the skull sliding on the atlas. That's not good. That makes it really hard to hold the adjustment. So what happens is people bend over, round their back into a weak position. They lift their head up, knock themselves out of adjustment, and then they lift and go, ugh. And then they come walking in looking like a question mark. Oh, I hurt my back. Here's something you can do to really help hold your adjustment. Say you do have to help someone move a couch. If you think about tucking your chin, just a little bit like this, now you don't have to do this. If you just think about tucking your chin a little bit, what happens is when you bend over, it makes it almost impossible to round your back. So it keeps a good strong arch in your back. You protect your adjustment by keeping your chin tucked. Then you can bend down with your legs and your strong hip muscles. And then you can lift properly, protecting your adjustment, protecting your lower back. That one's huge. So if you have to go, like I said, help someone move a couch, first thing you think about, keeping your chin tucked. That's going to protect the rest of everything else. Now when it comes to chiropractic, a lot of times people will think neck pain, back pain, things like that. But a lot of times what happens is when we start working with people with this neck pain, back pain, what we'll see is like this list that's over here that are different things that we've been able to help people with that either they came in for that specific thing or it just happened because we were working on something else. We were allowing the body to function how it was designed. Things like headaches, vertigo, heartburn, fibromyalgia, all these different things are things we've seen improve under chiropractic care. Now that's not saying we're the cure-all for all the world's ailments, but what we are is just a way of allowing your body to function the way that it's designed. And when your body is subluxated and the brain can't communicate with the body how it's designed to communicate, a subluxated body can't be a healthy body. And we can't do it without you. Like I said, we see you guys for 5-10 minutes. The rest of the time it's up to you to hold it in place. And we just gave you a bunch of different things that you can do to help hold your adjustment in place. And so I hope you guys got some little nuggets out of that. I hope that it helps you hold your adjustment longer. I hope it helps you become healthier in the long run, because that's our ultimate goal, is to help you in your journey of health to get you to where you want to be. So I hope you guys have a great night. I thank you for watching, and we'll see you at your next appointment. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.